Hello and welcome to Newsweek South Asia, your one-stop destination for in-depth analysis of security challenges, regional conflicts and the evolving threat of terrorism. Let's take a look at the headlines first. India slams Pakistan at UNGA, calls out epicenter of global terrorism. Victims and survivors of terror raise voices in Geneva. And suicide blast targeting Pakistan, paramilitary in Quetta kills 10 people. India has once again called out Pakistan's duplicity on terrorism at the world stage. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, in his address to the 80th United Nations General Assembly, stressed that no nation should be allowed to harbour and sponsor terrorism while pretending to be a victim of it. Without naming Pakistan directly, his remarks left little doubt about the country he described as an epicenter of global terrorism. The minister's speech highlighted India's decades-long struggle against terrorism emanating from across the border, citing the recent Pahalgam terror attack as the latest example of state-sponsored violence.
On September 27 in New York, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar addressed world leaders at the United Nations General Assembly.
Namaskar from the people of Bharat.
Beginning his address with a simple greeting, Namaskar from the people of Bharat, S. Jaishankar reminded delegates of the UN Charter's founding principles, stressing that it was meant not only to prevent war, but to build peace and protect the dignity of every human being. Jaishankar's words carried weight against the backdrop of the April 2025 Pahalgam attack, where 26 innocent tourists were brutally killed by terrorists trained and armed across the border.
For decades now,
the minister described the killings as another act of cross-border barbarism, stressing that since independence, India has consistently faced a neighbor that has institutionalized terrorism as statecraft.
the most recent example, India has confronted this challenge since independence, having a neighbor that is an epicenter of global terrorism. For decades now, major international terrorist attacks are traced back to that one country. UN's designated lists of terrorists are replete with its nationals. The most recent example of cross-border barbarism was the murder of innocent tourists in Pahalgam in April this year. Major international
India minced no words while calling out the scale of Pakistan's terror industry.
countering terrorism.
He warned that when nations declare terrorism as state policy, when terror camps operate openly, and when terrorists are glorified as heroes, the world cannot afford to stay silent.
Countering terrorism is a particular priority because it synthesizes bigotry, violence, intolerance, and fear. When nations openly declare terrorism a state policy, when terror hubs operate on an industrial scale, when terrorists are publicly glorified, then such actions must be unequivocally condemned. The financing of terrorism must be choked, even as prominent terrorists are sanctioned. Relentless pressure must be applied on the entire terrorism ecosystem. Those who condone nations that sponsor terror will find that it comes back to bite them.
Earlier in the session, Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, in his own UNGA address, sought to deflect attention from Pakistan's role in exporting terrorism. He accused India of breaching international law by suspending the Indus Waters Treaty following the Pahalgam attack and reiterated Islamabad's long-standing narrative on Kashmir. He also claimed Pakistan's military had destroyed 7 Indian fighter jets during Operation Sindoor.
If destroyed runways and burnt out hangars look like victory, as the Prime Minister claimed, Pakistan is welcome to enjoy it.
India immediately launched a rebuttal through its right of reply on September 26. First Secretary at India's permanent mission to the UN, Petal Gehlot, dismissed Sharif's statement as absurd theatrics and accused Islamabad of glorifying terrorism while sheltering its perpetrators. She highlighted that Pakistan's claims on Operation Sindoor were a distortion of events, noting that images of burnt-out hangars and destroyed runways at Pakistani air bases exposed the reality of Islamabad's losses.
A picture speaks 1,000 words, and we saw many pictures of terrorists slain in Bahawalpur and Muridke terror complexes by Indian forces during Operation Sindoor. When senior Pakistani military and civilian officials publicly glorify and pay homage to such notorious terrorists, can there be any doubt about the proclivities of this regime? The Prime Minister of Pakistan also advanced a bizarre account of the recent conflict with India. The record on this matter is clear. Till 9th May, Pakistan was threatening more attacks on India. But on 10th May, its military pleaded with us directly for a cessation to the fighting. The intervening event was the destruction caused to multiple Pakistani air bases by Indian forces. The pictures of that damage are, of course, publicly accessible. If destroyed runways and burnt-out hangars look like victory, as the Prime Minister claimed, Pakistan is welcome to enjoy it. The truth is that, as in the past, Pakistan is responsible for a terrorist attack on innocent civilians in India. We have exercised the right to defend our people against such actions and have brought the organizers and perpetrators to justice. Glorified terrorism.
Gehlot reminded the UN that Pakistan had long maintained terrorist camps, citing even public acknowledgements by its own ministers, and that it had sheltered Al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden while claiming to be a partner in counter-terrorism. She pointed out that at the UN Security Council earlier this year, Islamabad had blocked efforts to hold the resistance front accountable for the Pahalgam killings.
There is no room for any third party in that regard. This is our long-standing national position.
Rejecting Sharif's suggestion of third-party mediation, India reaffirmed that all bilateral issues would only be addressed directly between the two countries.
Will be held accountable.
Gehlot stressed that India would continue to hold both terrorists and their sponsors accountable, making it clear that New Delhi would not be deterred by nuclear blackmail.
Nor will we allow terrorism to be practiced under the cover of a nuclear blackmail.
Dr. Jaishankar's address, together with India's right of reply, reinforced New Delhi's consistent position. Pakistan's long-standing use of terrorism as state policy continues to threaten regional and global security.
Believes that it has both.
In Geneva, Switzerland, the 60th session of the United Nations Human Rights Council became the stage for voices long silenced by terrorism. At a side event titled Victims of Terror, jointly organized by the Shivi Development Society and the People's Cultural Center, survivors, activists and community leaders came together to highlight Pakistan's role in abetting cross-border terrorism in Jammu and Kashmir. The gathering called for justice, recognition and global solidarity with those who have borne the brunt of decades of violence.
An event titled Victims of Terror was held in Geneva on the sidelines of the 60th session of the UN Human Rights Council, honoring victims and survivors of terrorism. Jointly organized by the Shivi Development Society and the People's Cultural Center, the event shed light on the devastating human cost of terrorism while drawing attention to Pakistan's continued role in abetting cross-border terror in Jammu and Kashmir. The event brought together human rights activists, NGO representatives, journalists and academicians. Speakers urged international actors to intensify efforts against terrorism and expose Pakistan's hand in destabilizing South Asia. The focus was clear. Terrorism in Jammu and Kashmir is not a homegrown phenomenon, but a sustained campaign of violence exported from across the border. Political and social activist Shehnaz Ganei underscored that Pakistan alone is the architect of Kashmir's terror landscape. She highlighted that for more than 3 decades, ordinary men, women, children, pilgrims and tourists have been killed not by rebels but by members of UN-designated terror groups such as Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed and the Resistance Front.
So we are here to raise the voices of our people who are the victims of this cross-border terrorism. No, there is no conflict between unequals. India is a democracy where institutions function under law, whereas Pakistan is a military state which only sponsors and trains terrorists. When in Jammu and Kashmir, people are killed like ordinary men, women, children, pilgrims, tourists. They are not killed by the spontaneous rebels. They are killed by the members of the Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed and TRF. And you know, these organizations are registered organizations as a terrorist groups by UN, US and India. So there is no symmetry between the state defending its people and the state who is sponsoring and manufacturing terror.
Ganei compared India's democratic institutions with Pakistan's military-driven terror machinery, stressing that there can be no symmetry between a state defending its citizens and a state manufacturing terrorism. She also condemned the recent Pahalgam terror attack, calling it an attempt to sabotage economic revival, tourism and growth in the region. From the Kashmiri Pandit community, advocate Vishwa Ranjan Pandita described the genocide and forced exodus inflicted upon his people in 1990. He recalled how targeted killings and mass violence forced the community into displacement, a tragedy that still awaits global recognition.
Although the issue of Kashmiri Pandits have been discussed within the country for a long time at international forums like United Nations, I think it was missing. That is why we are here, to let people and the world know what happened to the Kashmiri Pandits in 1990, to bust the narratives of Pakistan. That is why we are here. And also from this stage, also from this forum, we want to request the world community to direct Pakistan to stop aiding and abetting the terror, to stop the terror activities they are doing in India and in our state of Jammu and Kashmir, and also direct the Pakistan to dismantle its terror infrastructure completely.
Pandita urged the global community to dismantle Pakistan's terror infrastructure and to hold Islamabad accountable for crimes against humanity. He warned that Pakistan's proxies such as the Resistance Front continue to operate under the false narrative of an indigenous struggle masking the truth of cross-border terror. Speaking on behalf of the Sikh community, Harleen Kaur recounted the pain of deliberate targeting of Sikhs in Jammu and Kashmir. She accused Pakistan-backed terror groups of seeking to fracture social harmony and spread fear.
Actually, it is a misconception that is going throughout the world and the nation. Actually, Muslims are very well off there. They live the life with dignity. They're educators, entrepreneurs and into sports also. They are too much economically well off, and they hold a very significant roles in administration, in government sectors, in police sectors. And I must say it's better to visit Kashmir and see the situation there by yourself.
The event concluded with a strong appeal for global solidarity with terror victims and an urgent call for accountability. Speakers emphasized that Pakistan's long-standing policy of exporting terrorism has devastated lives in Jammu and Kashmir but has failed to break the determination of its people.
Two of South Asia's nations, Pakistan and Bangladesh stand accused of failing their women and children. At a side event during the 60th session of the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva, global voices called for urgent action to end systemic abuses, forced disappearances, and repression targeting vulnerable groups. Rights activists and parliamentarians warn that without international accountability, women and children will continue to pay the price of state neglect and rising extremism.
The event, organized by International Support for Human Rights in collaboration with Italia Cambia, gathered members of the European Parliament, Norwegian political leaders, Italian human rights advocates, and global senators. Their concern was unified. Pakistan and Bangladesh are turning into dangerous landscapes for women, children, and minority communities. Speakers highlighted a string of shocking incidents. In Pakistan, forced conversions of Hindu and Christian girls continue unabated, with recent reports from Sindh and Punjab showing teenage girls abducted, married off, and silenced by clerics. In Balochistan, women have been subjected to abductions and torture during military crackdowns with no accountability for Pakistan's security forces. Meanwhile, in Bangladesh, extremist attacks on Hindu temples, harassment of Christian minorities, and sexual violence against women have intensified, all against the backdrop of political upheaval under the caretaker government. Norwegian leader Erik Selle, who spent part of his life in Bangladesh, expressed heartbreak at the country's decline.
I'm really devastated. My heart is broken of what has been happening the last year. There's also a geopolitical aspect to what happened in Bangladesh to have the caretaker government now. But my plea to Mohammed Yunus, the caretaker prime minister, is to get control of this country and take care of these extremists. Because the Bengali people is a beautiful people and they can live in peace. But you see all around the world, when extremists get ground, evil prevails.
Selle went further, pointing to the dual crisis across the region. In Bangladesh, he said, Hindus and Christians live in constant fear of violence.
And Hindus are targeted especially now, and also Christians, but mostly in Bangladesh, the big part has been targeted of Hinduism. And this goes back even to the War of Independence in Bangladesh, where the Pakistani army deliberated attacked Hindus. And that is something that has to be, it's not easy, but someone has to speak out and say it's 2025. The world is small. We cannot let extremists take over this world.
And in Pakistan, especially in conflict-ridden Balochistan, women continue to face systemic oppression from enforced disappearances to sexual exploitation, while the United Nations remains largely silent. Echoing those concerns, Anna Maria Sessint, member of the European Parliament, underlined that even migrant women from Pakistan and Bangladesh face repression abroad.
The situation of women and young girls is very, very difficult. I was the mayor of my city, and in my city there are many people come from Bangladesh and Pakistan, 8,000 people, and the people that work, the men that work are 1,700, and the women can't work. The situation of these women are of repression situation. They get around the city with the burqa, and the young girl go to the school often with the burqa. It is impossible to accept this situation, and Islamic ideology is a very problem for Italy and for Europe.
The Geneva gathering emphasized that empowering women is not only a human rights obligation but also a developmental necessity. Yet in both Pakistan and Bangladesh, extremist groups and state systems are crushing those opportunities. Just last year, cases of child marriage in Bangladesh surged amid political instability, while in Pakistan, UN reports documented over 1,000 forced conversions of minority girls annually. The side event ended with a unanimous call to action. The international community must increase pressure on Islamabad and Dhaka. Rights defenders warned that unless the United Nations, the European Union and global watchdogs step up accountability, Pakistan and Bangladesh will continue down a path of impunity, leaving women, children and minorities trapped in a cycle of abuse, violence and neglect.
Pakistan's restive province of Balochistan has once again been shaken by violence. A deadly suicide bombing outside the Frontier Constabulary headquarters in Quetta left at least 10 people dead and dozens more injured. While Islamabad and its provincial leaders scramble to brand this attack as a terrorist strike, the tragedy once again exposes the deep-rooted anger and alienation simmering across Balochistan, a province rich in resources but deprived of rights.
The attack unfolded on a busy street near the paramilitary headquarters in Quetta. A suicide bomber rammed a pickup truck into the compound, followed by a fierce gun battle as armed rebels stormed the premises. At least 10 people, including civilians and soldiers, were killed.
नदरा के सामने खड़ा हुआ था धमाका अचानक सा हुआ पता नहीं चला बाद में देखा गाड़ी के पीछे पड़ा.
Provincial officials admitted that security personnel were among the casualties. Health Minister Bakht Muhammad Kakar confirmed the scale of attack and described the devastation at hospitals where dozens of injured were rushed.
जो अब तक जो डेथ टोल है वो हमारे पास 10 लोग जो है वो शहीद हुए हैं, 5 जो है क्रिटिकली इंजर्ड है और 26 इस वक्त जो हमारे पास एडमिटेड है वो ज़ख्मी है और बाकी ये जो सिविल हॉस्पिटल की इस वक्त वो है. बाकी हॉस्पिटल से हम अभी कंफर्म कर रहे हैं कि वहाँ पे कोई इस तरह की वो ज़ख्मी तो नहीं लाए गए हैं. यकीनन एक बुज़दिलाना कार्रवाई थी जिनका निशाना जो था इनिशियली वो हेडक्वार्टर था FC का.
Quetta, the provincial capital, lies at the heart of Pakistan's most volatile region. Balochistan borders Iran and Afghanistan, and its strategic location has made it a playground for global geopolitics. The province hosts the multi-billion-dollar China-Pakistan economic corridor and the much-hyped Gwadar port, a key outpost of the Beijing's Belt and Road initiative. But while Islamabad celebrates CPEC as a game changer, for the people of Balochistan it has only deepened their misery. Far from benefiting locals, the project has become a symbol of exploitation. Job opportunities and contracts overwhelmingly go to Punjabis, while Baloch communities remain unemployed, impoverished and dispossessed of their own land.
Pakistan has depended so far to a great extent on China for both for the economic welfare, economic support and for strategic stability. If China finds that their stay in Pakistan becomes untenable because of increasing such attacks, Pakistan is going to become even more isolated. We have seen that the support of Pakistan from even the Gulf countries, Saudi Arabia or Oman or Qatar, etc., are coming down, are diminishing. So Pakistan is going to become even more isolated.
The failure of Gwadar to deliver prosperity, coupled with Islamabad's decade-long policy of repression, has only fueled the armed insurgency. Since Pakistan forcibly annexed the sovereign state of Kalat in 1948, Balochistan has been subjected to military crackdowns, enforced disappearances, and systemic marginalization. Generation of Baloch activists, students, and intellectuals have been silenced under fabricated charges of terrorism. Despite being resource-rich with gas, coal, copper, and now rare earth minerals, Balochistan remains Pakistan's poorest province. Over 70% of its people live below the poverty line. Healthcare, education, electricity, and clean water remain out of reach for most families. This, international experts argue, has left the Baloch with little faith in Pakistan's promises.
The people of Balochistan are very not only unhappy, in fact they were even taken up arms and violence against their own government because they feel that they are being deprived of their rightful dues. The federal government does not care for them. There is no water, no electricity, no education. The Chinese projects which are happening there, due to that the security is so intense that the local people cannot even use their own roads. They have to go via different routes. In the background of all of this, and now Pakistan suddenly has discovered that it has rare earth minerals which the world needs, and they are showcasing them to the world. So the people of Balochistan, I think, are expressing very clearly that what Pakistan is selling abroad is not the reality, and what any investors, if they think that they will come to Balochistan and become rich overnight, they are highly mistaken, and the government of Pakistan must pay attention to their grievances.
In recent months, violence has intensified. Separatist groups frustrated with Islamabad's empty promises have escalated attacks on Pakistani security forces and Chinese workers linked to CPEC projects. While no outfit has claimed responsibility for the Quetta bombing, experts note it fits the wider pattern of resistance against Pakistan's exploitative policies in the province.
And with that, we come to the end of this edition of Newsweek South Asia. We'll be back next week with more news, views, and analysis from the subcontinent. Meanwhile, do keep writing to us at nwsa@anin.com. This is Shivangi Mishra signing off on behalf of the entire team of Newsweek South Asia. Goodbye and take care.